All right, how's everybody doing today? Sorry about the delay. I was streaming out to the wrong ingest server. I wonder if I just accidentally streamed out to my personal channel. Although I don't think there's any like events scheduled. So if you guys are new here, go ahead and ask a question in the chat. You gotta put the exclamation point Q in front of it, and it only works on YouTube. So, yeah, just make sure to do that, and then we'll get you all picked up. We are going to be having the giveaway open. It should already be accepting responses. So, while we do live streams, we actually do an entry where you can get entered to win a, I think it's either $100 or $150 gift card to our store. I'll pull it up. I think it's 100. What do I have listed there? Oh, it's 150. 150. A data 50. No, $150. So every month we pull a winner. Anyways, I'm trying to think. I don't have anything super new or exciting to share today. If you guys did see, we did send out an email about the wordings that VS Code is displaying. Now, to be clear, this is a like something on Visual Studio Code updated. Specifically, it looks to be Platform IO. So Platform IO is a platform for developing software, and they do updates, so independent of our firmware. So as they release updates, it gets pushed down the stream. So they're deprecating some variables, and they're just issuing a warning saying, hey, developers, we're not going to have this available anymore in the next release, so go ahead and update your code. The good thing is, even if they update it, it's not actually going to break any of the board configs that we deal with. It looks like only a couple of them are actually affected by the change, even if they push it and they're like, this is no longer affected, unless it just prevents compiling completely. So I'm gonna look at the Marlin GitHub issue queue and see if there's any like feedback already. I did poke around in the code for a little bit and tried to determine if it's something that I could easily change over, if it's just as simple as changing some variables. But I did change the variable names to the new one that they're saying it's going to use, and it does not compile. So, yay! But Sunlu S9 Plus, did they release another printer? The S9. I just bought their S8. Interesting. Probably just another regurgitation of the same crap. That's all these companies do. They just reissue the same crap. Oh, it's got a touchscreen. Yeah, so it's going to be worse than the S8. So it's the S8 with crappier stuff on it. That's great. I haven't used it, but it looks like the S8. I do have the S8 Pro. I think it's the Pro. It's sitting in there. I bought it because it's got a different control board in it and slightly different settings. I want to make sure our firmware works on it because someone said it didn't. So anyways, we do have some questions here. I'm going to go ahead and start answering said questions. Again, only enter the questions in on YouTube. If you post them on Discord or Facebook, if you're watching on Facebook, or Twitter, it has to be on YouTube. So if any of my mods are in the chat and see somebody posting a question from Facebook, go ahead and if you can copy and paste that into YouTube so the bot picks it up, I'd appreciate it. So, all right. The first question I got here is 3D Experiments says, I want to print materials like Peak on my Ender 6. Is it possible to upgrade or start with another printer? So as far as I know, and someone correct me wrong, I believe, I'm going to look up Peak, but I'm pretty sure That's one that requires a heated chamber. If I am correct, let's see, is this gonna... Hey, look at it! We actually went to a, the correct monitor today. Let's see, I think Vision Miner has Peak. Yeah, they sell Peak. And if you guys we're waiting on Vision Miner, we have Vision Miner back in stock. So if you guys are looking to pick it up, and we got new bottle sizes. The 120 milliliters, which are 20 milliliters more than the 100s that we had, they're also $5 less, so they're only $45. And then we've also got 50 milliliter ones for 20. So they did refresh that. Man, these are expensive failed prints with Peak. I never actually looked at Peak filament, but Jesus, it's expensive. But let's see. All right, so glass transition temp of 143°C, so that's when it actually starts getting soft. The melting temp is 343. Does it say... So bed temp on the spool, they're saying bed temp of 130 to 145°C, so your Ender 6 is not going to hit that on the bed. Extruder temp is 375 to 410. You could also upgrade that, so right off the bat, you're going to have to upgrade your extruder, you're going to have to upgrade your bed. The question is, are you going to need... You're probably going to need an enclosure. Here, enclosure temp, if your printer is equipped. Enclosure temp, not bed temp. Enclosure temp is 70 to 140°C. So just telling you right now, if you're printing with like Peak or something, if you have something even like our Easy ABL or the BL Touch in there, or any other electronics, say goodbye to those electronics. I would probably say... in terms of Peak, because this is a higher end filament, and like at $345 a roll, I probably would just get a printer that's designed to actually print this kind of stuff. And I believe that's what Vision Miner, so they do have their nanopolymer, which is marketed for these printers, but they have these printers here, right here. They're designed specifically to print these type of materials out of the box. You know, and yes, they are expensive, but I have not used these. But I've talked to Rob over there, and he swears by these machines. They sell good quality stuff. But here, 90°C chamber, 160°C build plate, and a 450°C extruder. So, yeah, that's what I would probably do. If I was looking to print these type of materials, I would probably just go and buy a printer that's designed for it, because, like, I wouldn't want to be wasting $345 a roll of material. Like, that's nuts. This one's probably expensive because it says request a quote, and if you have to ask, you probably can't afford it. Like, this is a big boy. 500°C nozzle. This is an IDEX one. I think this is IDEX. Is it? Looks like it's got two heads. But probably really expensive. So financing, $2,400 a month. It's a $50,000 printer. So you're getting into the territory of... you're getting into the territory of commercial grade printers. Here's interesting. This is a BL Touch, and the chamber goes up to 90°C. I wonder how long that BL Touch will last at that, because I know our sensor supplier, their official max long-term use on our sensors is like 80°C, and I believe the BL Touch is lower than that. I don't know if they have it. I know we advertise ours at 70. So... But yeah, I mean, here's the thing: you're spending $240 or $300+ on a roll of plastic. You're not going to be printing on a printer that costs about the same as much as the printer that you're printing, that you would be trying to print it on. But I would shoot them a message. Just go to their website, thevisionminer.com, and see what they have. Because I know sometimes Rob said they had, I don't know if they still do, but they used to have like off lease or like secondhand machines that they sell for cheaper. So, you know, at the end of the day, they're very similar in terms of what parts and how things operate to the printers, you know, your standard printers. The difference is how high things can reach in terms of temperatures and, you know, the quality of the parts going into it. You know, higher temperatures, you're going to have to be putting higher quality parts so they last. So, Carlos says, what's a good retraction speed for a Titan extruder on a Bowden setup? Basically, you want to run your retraction as fast as your printer can handle. So, and that can vary depending on what board you're running, what drivers your board has, your firmware settings, and your VREF. So, meaning if you have like a Creality stock board, like with Trinamic drivers, you know, or a silent board or upgrade board, like the 427s, or like the Ender 6 that had it on the E. The newer ones, I think, have 4988s. But if you're running a Trinamic driver in Stealth Chop, you're not going to be able to run that fast of retractions because you're just going to lose steps. It's one of the reasons on our Easy board we have the firmware default setting to put the E in spread cycle mode because you get more torque. But basically, it should be as fast as your printer can actually handle. I run all of our firmware here, and if you're on our latest version of the firmware, we actually bumped up the retraction, the max retraction speed out of the box from like 50 to 100. Now, that doesn't mean if you put our firmware on there, it's going to run at 100. It means it will. The default cap is up to 100. So I would say start at 100 and see if the retract is not losing any steps. If you're running at 100 and it actually works, stick with it. I run about, I think, 85 in my Ender 6 with our Tough Extruder. So, BW's Electronics are asking, are cable chains a benefit or are they more for looks? I say it really depends on the machine. If it's designed around it and it came with it, I'd say it's, you know, a benefit. The problem I see is a lot of people that put aftermarket cable chains on a printer that did not come with them is they do not do it correctly and they end up creating more problems by not accounting for pinch points with the cable, which then they create pinch points where the cable starts breaking internally because it's being bent over and over again. They don't leave enough slack, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, like in general, a cable chain is not a bad thing as long as it's properly installed. And the problem is most people that have issues with cable chains are having the issues because they didn't properly install them. So the short answer is it depends on the printer and your level of competency. Brian, what's an easy all-metal hot-end upgrade for a CR10 V2? Just swapping out the heat break, and we actually one of our viewers actually has the CR10 V2 and the V3, and he said that our bimetal heat break fits in there, which I'm not surprised. So you don't have to change your whole hot end out. You can just change the heat break and get an all-metal hot end. So, and that'll run you a grand total of $18.99. So we just got these in. I have them in quite a few of my machines, and they've been running great. So, what was that? Oh, that was Matt. Wait. No, Brian. Brian. At Brian. There you go. I posted a link in the chat. All right. Let's see. Matt is asking, do you think you ever have a way to send in Ender 6 main and display board to have them flash for a certain fee? Well, the thing is, those boards already come with a bootloader. So if you just replace the LCD with our kit, which is less than, I think they're like $40. The prices fluctuate just because of like all the fees and stuff we pay for shipping and stuff for the LCDs, but they're right around, I think, $40. I'm going to our site right now. Yeah, the highest end one, which is the ABS and ABS version of the housing, is $40.98, and if you want the PLA one, it's $34.98. So, and that includes technical support too. So, honestly, it would be a waste for you to spend the money to send it in when your board already has a bootloader on it. You can just flash over SD. So, and if your SD slot's broken or whatnot, I'm not going to really be able to do much of anything to it. And you should just replace the cable going to it. So, but I'll post a link here for you. There you go. And that's the LCD kit. And like I said, the nice thing is, unlike a lot of companies in this space, we actually do provide actual real tech support, and it's people in the U.S. You're not going to, like Amazon, if you try to get tech support for your printer stuff you bought from them, you're going to get some guy in India or girl. I don't know. But here you get actual real people. So, we're a small business here out of Indiana. I've got 3 guys that do tech support and customer service. That's all they do. And they actually know printers. They're not some random people that are just a body to take up the seat and talk to you. They actually know their shit. So, let's see. Speaking of my awesome tech support guys, Blazeby is asking a question, which is Tor. He said, thoughts on lax enclosures and what would you add to your ideal enclosure? So I think the lax enclosures are nice. The problem I have with them is the like amount of little bits and bobs you have to buy. There may be kits out now, but the reason I haven't built one is just because like you have to get all the panels cut, you got to hunt down all the screws, you got to print all the parts. Like I'm more of a, I'll just spend the extra $100, you know, or whatever it would cost to just pay somebody who already built a proper enclosure. But you know, if you got time and patience, I don't see a problem with the lac enclosures, to be honest. So I'm looking to see here. Saw your video on the Enter 3S1. I'm planning to get one. Do you have a better pick and the same budget? I'm in Europe. Would you guys get delivery here? So yeah, we do deliver to over in Europe. It depends on what country you're in over there, but in general, yes, we do ship to most of those areas over there. But I mean, here's the thing. I have been spending more time with the S1. Do you have the prints that came off the S1? The dog? Little doggies? The flexi dogs? Just 1 second. So, my main complaint about the S1 was the unfinishedness of it and the price that you were charging for it. So, this came off the S1. This has our firmware, our LCD kit on it, the 5015 fan, and you know, not a ton of modifications, but it works well. So as a printer, it does print nicely. The problem I have is the cost to what you get and the fact that out of the box, in my case, out of the box, it did not work correctly. It did not work with standard G-code. Even with the latest firmware update from Creality, it didn't work with the power resume that they advertised. So it was all software issues. Long-term wise, I am concerned about the repairability of it just because it has proprietary ribbon cables to connect to the hot end. So meaning when, not if, when that cable starts failing, you're not going to be able to repair it as easily as other printers that use standard wire to the hot end. So when I'm evaluating a printer, I'm not thinking about right now it's printing out of the box. I'm also thinking later down the road as a consumer, how can I repair it? You know, and like even though we are a company that does, you know, mods and stuff to the printers, you know, if we can't repair it either or make stuff for it, then we're just not going to do it because, you know, if let's say you need the new ribbon cable, well, it's not really advantageous for me to go have a bunch of custom ribbon cables made. You know, it just might not be worth the time. So which means that we just don't do anything like that for it. So when I'm reviewing a printer and taking it apart and building it, I'm also looking at, you know, months and years down the road. Also, if the manufacturer wasn't available. So who knows, you know, Creality could go tits up tomorrow. And what are you going to do to replace it? And fix it if something is failed or damaged. Like if you have to get it from them and they're no longer around and there's no aftermarket companies making parts for it, you know, and it's a key part, you're either having to do a ton of custom work or just toss the printer out and get something else, you know. Let's see. Tom says, sorry, my ears bother me. Tom says, why does it seem to me I have to print an environment akin to a surgery room, temp, humidity, position to the moon, and this is for PLA. I don't have enough information to give you any sort of troubleshooting direction because you haven't really provided me with any information that tells me what the issue is you're trying to solve. So if you want to go ahead and give me details on the issue that you're trying to solve, I can do my best to give you advice. So, but just telling me I can't print doesn't tell me what your issue is. MadKit USA, is there TH3D firmware available for Enter 3 V2 with a BL Touch and the E3D Hemera Direct Drive hot end? Yes, our standard firmware works. You just have to put the settings in for your printer, meaning your BL Touch settings, your BL Touch pin you're connecting to, the offsets of said BL Touch, and then your Hemera steps per millimeter, and possibly reversing the extruder direction. So if you read through, E3D usually pretty good. E3D usually has pretty good documentation. They'll probably tell you what you have to do in the firmware in terms of steps per millimeter and you know, determine if you need to reverse the extruder direction is pretty easy. If I change an extruder out, I tell it to extrude, and if it goes the wrong way, I then go in the firmware and tell it, okay, reverse the E-motor direction. It's a 50-50 shot. It depends on how the gearing is on the extruder and how everything is put together, whether you're going to have to reverse it from the stock direction or not. But that is all done in software. So, you know, in case anybody's wondering, you don't need a firmware for an Ender 3 V2 with a BL Touch and an E3D Chimera. You just need firmware for an Ender 3 V2, and then you need to plug in the settings for your particular modifications you've done to it. So there's no such thing as a firmware for the Ender 3 V2 with a BL Touch and an E3D Chimera direct drive. You just need firmware for the Ender 3 V2, meaning its LCD and its control board, and then plug in your settings for your particular machine. So, and that goes for any printer. So, you know, and if somebody says, oh, I have Ender 3 firmware, Ender 3 V2 firmware that has a BL Touch and E3D Chimera, well, that would also assume that you also are setting your printer up exactly the same that they did, as in the sensors mounted in the same spot, the wiring's connected to the same things, everything is identical, because if I were to put the same thing on my printer and then hand you my firmware, there's a good chance it's not going to work or be correct. Let's see. Skydown asks, what are a couple recommended 300mm bed printers to get for a second printer? Looking for something to complement my Ender 3 S1 I got from my son. So if you can still, I don't know if Creality's still making the original CR10S. I still think that's a good machine, even though it has an 8-bit board. I like it because there's a lot of aftermarket upgrades from us and many other companies for that printer if and when you decide to upgrade or change things. So that's something to keep in mind. One of the reasons I really like the, you know, more standard models and, you know, older models from Creality is they're actually more user-friendly and user-serviceable than some of the new ones are putting out. They're kind of going more towards a closed ecosystem, proprietary type part thing, and as somebody that likes to repair my own things, I don't like that. I don't care if it's from Creality, I don't care if it's a printer, I don't care if it's, you know, other stuff in my house. I like stuff that's easily repairable and upgradable, and, you know, usually repairable and upgradable go hand in hand. If something's easily repairable, you can usually easily upgrade it, and vice versa. So, you know, and sometimes when things break, you repair it with an upgraded part. You know, that's where I'm at. A lot of the stuff I do when it comes to the printers is I wait for stuff to break, and okay, the stock control board died. Well, now I'm going to put an easy board in, you know, or the stock hot end just had a massive meltdown. Okay, now I'm going to throw my V6 in there. You know, and there's some people that go ahead and just overhaul everything out of the box. I used to be one of those people. But the for 300, the Sunlu S8, the original Sunlu S8, I thought was a pretty good bang for the buck. I have the S8 Pro, and I think that would be kind of a good option, just because of the price. If you're looking for something more budget that's maybe not perfect out of the box, it does have its flaws. If you watch my Sunlu S8 video, it does have some major flaws, like a poor layer fan cooling setup, but you already have a printer, so if you're willing, this is one of those printers where the cost is low and it has some flaws, but the cost is low enough to say, okay, get this and then fix it. And that's one thing I try to take into mind for recommending or not recommending a machine is how much did I pay for it and how much bullshit do I have to deal with. So if I'm paying a lot for it, I expect low bullshit. But if I'm paying a little for it, I'll be more lenient how much bullshit I'm willing to have to fix myself or upgrade, you know what I mean? So... But yeah, the Sunlu S8 Pro, the Soval SVO3, I still think Soval is a very underrated printer company. The SVO3 was a good 300 by 300, and because they utilize a lot of Creality stuff, I think that's another good option and has good repairability and a lot of aftermarket support from us and many other machines. So, yeah, I think that'd be good. I mean, if you were said, hey, Tim, tell me what to buy, I'd probably go buy a Soval SVO3. If you just want me to tell you what to buy, that's what I'd probably do. Is an SVO3 for that build size. Nero Griff, what is that big red print on the table? This is a necklace. Oh, excuse me. This is a necklace holder. We are doing a little market thing locally here in Hobart, and Bertha printed this, and you can see here, nice thick layer lines. Oh yeah. So this took, this whole print, this is actually 3 pieces. This only took like 5 hours for Bertha to print. And she actually just finished a smaller one right now. So, let's see. To the council is asking, are you going to be designing firmware for the Anycubic Cobra? So I looked at the Anycubic Cobra and there was something weird with the processor. Oh yeah, it's got a knockoff processor on it. So probably not. Not for a while unless somebody comes out with a Marlin build for it. They are using a knockoff processor instead of a genuine STM32, so that proves hard to do really much of anything with. I believe they're also running their own proprietary firmware on there. It's probably not theirs. It's probably some other company they contracted out to. But I'm trying to find. I think it was like the N32 CPU. It's one of the CPUs that Voxelab used, and nobody has gotten working stable firmware in terms of Marlin firmware from it. So that looks to be the same kind of thing. I'm looking here to see, because somebody had a teardown of it. I think it was on the Cobra Max, but I believe they use the same. Oh, here, Anycubic Cobra review. So this guy said, I will just share. This is just like a web page here. It said it had. Where is it? Here we go. Yeah, so this has got this crappy HC32460 CPU. This is just some Chinese crappy processor. It's a low-cost, low-cost Chinese processor. They're not like directly copying STM32 like GigaDevice does in terms of model numbers, but this CPU has shown up on multiple machines from Voxelab, and basically nobody's gotten a stable version of Marlin working aside from the one that Voxelab cobbled together. They have released source for it, but it's not stable. So maybe in time it'll get supported, but the thing is, like, stuff like this is what I'd be like, I probably wouldn't mess with this machine or buy it, just because if I want to upgrade this machine, whether that's changing the extruder, changing my hot end out, upgrading it to a different thermistor, those are all stuff that require firmware changes typically. And if I can't change the values and settings in the actual firmware because this is using some crappy low-cost chip, because they're doing cost cutting, this printer is basically useless for me. I don't use many printers stock. I don't think I use any printer stock. And the other thing, too, from a repairability standpoint, we got proprietary, non-standard wire connectors here. So I probably wouldn't buy this. This looks atrocious here, too. And again, we're seeing this, and I hate that we're seeing this trend towards these, like ribbon cable connectors. These are a pain in the ass for repairability. Yes, they look nice. Yes, they're quick to connect. But yeah, I was wondering, my mic was going into red. I was wondering if someone was going to say anything. I'll turn it down just a little bit. We should be better there. But anyways, like, I probably would not buy this printer. I'm not going to buy this printer. If they would send it to me for review, I'd check it out. But I would definitely mention in the review that this is probably going to be a machine that you're not going to be able to do much with. And you can tell this guy isn't very tech savvy, because literally the only con he listed is needs more on-screen options for calibration. Let's see if they actually release the source code. And here's the thing, if they're not using Marlin, which I don't have this machine, then they don't have to release a source code if they're not using open source firmware. So let's see. Tom's Hardware. I wonder how much they paid for that review. Wow. I didn't know Tom's Hardware was still around. Firmware. Nothing. Okay, so there's nothing linked here for firmware. User manual. Is there anything in the user manual to give away what software we might be running? Because this could be a total custom job that they contracted out or did in-house. I'm looking to see if they have any, like, screenshots of, like, the printer connecting, like, the console. That's what I'm looking for right now. Yeah, I can't see anything. The Viper, the Max, I think the Max uses the same board in it too. I think the Viper does as well. I cannot recall. Parts list. Okay, the Viper has a firmware, does a Cobra Max. I think the Cobra Max has the same board in it. Or same CPU at least on that board. Because I remember looking at Cobra Max review. Yeah, there's no firmware listed here at all. Let's see, main board. That's a bin file. Oh, hang on, let's see. It's weird seeing these printers pop up in like PC Magazine and stuff. They probably aren't going to have a picture of the board. I'd be really surprised if they did. Some tweaking required. Do they have a picture? All 3DP. They usually, so all 3DP doesn't usually have like a ton of detail on their stuff. Maybe they did. I'm not seeing anything. I see a little breakout board here. It just says it's a 32-bit. It doesn't say what it has in terms of a processor, nor are there pictures of it. What I'm trying to do is cross-reference the Viper mainboard with the other one to see if this has that HSC whatever. Now this has got a this is the motherboard, and this has a GigaDevice knockoff. So is it going to be that the only way to get like a name brand processor on your printer stuff is to buy aftermarket? Because like all these companies are cost cutting like crazy and just putting out these boards with these knockoff processors on them. Or no name, whatever you want to call them. You know, if a GigaDevice, we'll call it a knockoff. If it's, you know, these other ones that have their own model name, then fine. We'll call them just a Chinese processor. But let's see. I'm gonna open up the bin file here. Sometimes you can catch bits and pieces of like actual ASCII text in them. There was a site that allows you to upload. Hang on. Let's see, I'm trying to remember. Is it this one I used? It's one of them. Sometimes you can then find tech. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, so there we go. The Viper uses Marlin. There's literally text right there that says Marlin. So there we go. If you guys are not sure, if the company provides you a bin file, you can load it up into a hex editor like this, and at some point you'll usually see references to this. So the Viper is using Marlin, meaning if you're an owner of the Viper and you want firmware source code, they legally have to provide it to you because they're clearly using Marlin. Here's bugfix 2.0.x. And then you can see here, Marlin. Pretty hard to cover this up. I don't need the actual machine. Don't need the actual machine to determine if they're running Marlin or not. As long as I have a bin file, you can walk the bin file like this and see. So this one is using Marlin. Looks like it's one from September 2021. Firmware name, Marlin bug fix. Right there. Source code. So, yeah. So the Viper is using Marlin. Does anybody have... I'm really curious. Does anybody have the firmware for the Cobra that we can look at? Let's see. Here's a GitHub. Are they actually posting stuff on the GitHub? Here's a Viper. So here's a firmware for the Viper. Okay, so they did actually post. I would assume this is their firmware. for the Viper. So that's good. Yeah. Okay, so they're the firmware source for the Viper. Do they have it for the Cobra? Do they have it for the Cobra? I don't see anything for the Cobra. Do you guys see anything from the Cobra? Here's our Arduino framework for the Viper. That's weird. I wonder if that's for compiling the LCD. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything for the Cobra here. I'm really curious because I want to see if I'd be curious to see if the Cobra has if the Cobra is running Marlin, because if it is, they'd have to release the source code. But for example, I think it's the N32. Is it the N32? No, the HC32 Voxelab. Yeah, so like you can see there's a lot of, yeah, here, buyer beware, bad news for H32 users. Yeah, so basically I've been avoiding machines with that processor in it. Like, because it's so buggy. It's such a hack job. They're developing code on these like janky Chinese processors that are trying to target the super low end market, and I'm assuming they're changing to them instead of using STMs. Or hell, I'd even take GigaDevice over these HC32s, to be completely honest, because at least we can get code running on them. But yeah, as a consumer, like, you shouldn't just look at it just from a, oh, can I upgrade or not? Like, in terms of repairability, if you need to change the firmware and you can't, you're stuck, and then you're doing a major project to swap the board out. So to the council, the answer is no, we're not doing firmware for the Cobra. Not even a little bit. If someone comes out with one that actually works with Marlin, I'd be glad to integrate it, but I'm not allocating any of my time for it. My recommendation is to just change the board out to something that you can run Marlin on, so you can actually have control over your machine. So, they might be decent printers out of the box. The reviews seem to be pretty good, but I will not buy a printer that I can't modify, the stock firmware on. So there's so many other good printers out there that you can, modify the firmware on out of the box. It doesn't make sense to mess around with some of these other ones. Dean is asking Bex, Core XY, Ender 5 or Ender 6. The Ender 5s are not Core XYs. They are Cartesian machines. Just because a printer's a box, doesn't mean, just because a printer is a box shape doesn't mean it's Core XY. But I do like the Ender 6. Yeah, despite its tiny little quirks like the touch LCD being buggy, and I'm not a big fan of their breakout board, it is actually a pretty decent machine. I am a fan of it. I don't know what you mean. Jay or Gedson is asking, I'm in Ireland. If I order from you, would you send it with all the mods already installed? I don't know what you mean by send it with all the mods already installed. Yeah, so if you guys are asking questions, you guys got to put !Q in front of it. There's just too much chatter. And feel free, if you guys talk amongst yourselves, go ahead. That's what it's here for, if you guys have little side conversations going on. If I am answering a question from somebody, I do look to see if there's something from that person, if it requires additional information. Jeremy Belgrove says, I'm fitting MKS Gen LV 2.1. Gen LV 2.1. Are you talking about Gen L? Gen LV 2.1. I've heard of the Gen L, and I think the Gen LV2, but a 2.1? Is that 8-bit one? MKS Gen LV 2.1? I don't believe we moved over the Gen L. We used to sell the Gen L many years ago. But I don't believe we have that firmware for the Gen L. I don't think I took the time to port it over just because it was such an old board. We have firmware for the S Gen L, but that will not work on there. So the answer is no, we don't have one for the Gen L for our unified version 2. So at a certain point, if it's just like a really old board or a printer that just fell out of favor. You know, it's got old board and nobody is asking us for updates from it. We just cut it out. Dominic is asking, I think I read something about Prusa bought and printed solid. Have you heard about it? Yeah, I heard about it. It's interesting. I really don't have any other thoughts. It seems kind of like kind of weird. Like maybe they're just going to absorb them, but it seems like they're just carrying on as usual. Yeah, they're fine. So there's only one more question in the queue. So if you guys want to ask a question, do it now. We got like 10-15 minutes left. If we run out of questions, then I'm either gonna have to wrap up early or think of something to fill the gap. So I see someone asked about the exclamation. Close, Gary. Close. You don't put a space in it. It literally says it right above my head, guys. Right here. Right here. Exclamation point Q. But yes, the Silval SVO3 does utilize a Creality mainboard. So it'll fit our Easy board in it. So you can switch it out. Blaze 3D and RC, out of your 24 volt 410 by 410 printers, what one would say has the best bed? Totally don't want to convert my S4 to 24 volts, I swear. I mean, I only have one 24 volt 410 by 410 printer, and that's the Anycubic Chiron. And putting a Chiron bed in your S4 might not be a bad idea. To be honest with you, though, I would probably just put a Kinovo on there and call it a day, unless you can find a 24 volt pad. I would just add a new heating pad to the bed. So that's just my 2 cents. I had an S4. That bed was terrible. Tor, message Chris over at Tiny Machines. He had an aftermarket bed for that. I don't know. He never came to market with it because it pulled a ton of current, but I had one and it worked great. But I think it needed like a 700 or 800 watt 12 volt power supply. Mario said I posted a link for the Cobra Max. I'm assuming you posted in Discord. Let me check. Dimitri K, what is the big red thing? We went over this, but it's we'll do it again because you probably aren't here. It's a necklace holder for our little market adventure we're going on this weekend, right? It's this weekend? Yeah. So Saturday. So if you guys are in or around the Hobart area, we'll be vending. That came out weird. It's not a layer shift. It's almost like, unless that's in the model. Oh, did you take this? Wait.
I just took it off.
I wonder if it's just because of how hot it was. Look at how weird it's not straight. I mean, it's functional. But
Oh, yeah.
that model's weird. Anyways, let me see. That's all the questions in the queue here.
Wow.
Google Drive, Cobra Max firmware. Let's see. TH3D, live streams. All right, let's see. All right, that's downloading. I see Bill asked the questions. I'm going to download that. We're gonna answer Bill's question. All right. So about to install Unified firmware CR10 with the silicone heater bed added with SSR. Any point on what needs to be changed in the config file? Well, if you didn't change if you're using the stock thermistor, it comes on the bed, and even though you switch over to the SSR, you don't need to change anything. If everything else is stock, and even if you change the bed to a silicone heater, but you're still using the stock thermistor, and you're using an SSR to control it, so I'm assuming you pulled the DC lines going to the bed off, put them into the SSR, and the SSR is now switching the AC power, you actually don't need to do anything. So, Gedson, you pasted the same vague question in. I don't know what you mean by, if you order from us, we'll always send it with all the mods installed. I don't know what you mean. Mad Cat USA, thought on the Merscock firmware. That guy's weird. Use whatever you want. My opinion is that guy's weird and his firmware's kind of jank. So, like, he can't get basic stuff working, and I have some of his users asking me why our firmware works with the F4 S1 boards and his doesn't. I don't know. Tell him to fix his code. I don't troubleshoot other people's crap. Aside from crap that is required to run our products. Let's see. All right, that firmware for the Cobra download, we're going to look at that in a second. We're going to wrap it up. But Jenkins said, I'm finishing up building on Ender 3 Pro, retiring an ANET A6. Damn. Any gotcha set up after battling A6 for years, or should be pretty straightforward. Transplanting easy out sensor. Well, the easy out sensor, you're going to need a different adapter board. No, if you got the newer, if your Ender 3 Pro is a 422 board, you can repin the cable. There's information in the firmware about that, but not really. I mean, I would just update the firmware, and hopefully, if it's got the 32-bit board, then you're in business. So I'm gonna. Demetrius asked about the Mosaic array. I haven't used it. I try not to comment and give like this thing sucks type of feedback on stuff unless I've actually used it. So I am going to extract the Cobra firmware right now. And we are going to look at, we're going to load this up in the bin file. So this is a DWin set. I see a DWin set for the LCD. So that tells me it's a DWin LCD. I wonder if they'll do what Creality does, which is, just change out the LCD to a billion different versions. So, all right, let's go ahead and upload. Here's firmware.bin. We're going to upload this. So this is the Cobra firmware. So that I was just sent. It does look like it is the actual Cobra firmware. So if I open this up here and go up, so here's the README, just for completeness. Here's the update log. And then the screen here, you can see we got DWin set, and it is Anycubic branded. So this does look like it's from them. Let's see what they have in the what's it called? Let's see what they have in the source code. Gedson, no, we don't actually sell printers. We only sell accessories right now. And even if we sold printers, I would not ship them internationally. It's too risky. All right, let's see if we can find any remnants of Marlin in here. I would assume it's going to be running Marlin. Oh, I saw some text. Thermal runaway, airman temp. Those are Marlin ones. Oh, here we go. Marlin bug fix. Anycubic Viper ready. Okay, so if you guys have a Viper, tell them you want the goddamn source code. Cause yeah, this is running Marlin. Surprise, surprise. Looks like they tried to obfuscate a lot of it, but oh, look at that. Firmware name, Marlin. Marlin. Yep. Wait, this says Viper. And this is the Cobra Max. Is this a troll? Am I being trolled? Like someone sending me this file? Because this says Viper in here. Are they using the same? Oh no. Okay, hang on. M500 Anycubic Cobra Max and Cobra Max V2. Okay, no. So there's just references to the Viper in the Cobra. Yeah, Anycubic Viper ready. There's just references to the Viper in the Cobra firmware. Well, yeah, tell them if you're an Anycubic customer, tell them, hey, your shit's running Marlin. I want the source code. I want the source code that was used to build this file. So, like, if they give you this file, they have to give you the exact source code that was used to build that file. Not similar source code, the exact source code so you could rebuild that file exactly the same. So, know your rights under the GPL. And Anycubic, I have no problem if you guys are not going to provide source code. making sure everybody knows. So, with that, we are going to do the ceremonial dingo stick. You hit the bag. Oh, you want a dingo stick? Yes, he does. Yeah. Oh, was your leg asleep? He like stumbled a little bit. Did you do that? All right. Sit. Sit. Shake. Shake. Speak. Touch. Sit. Shake. Shake. No. Look cute. Look cute. Come here. Up. Come on. Up. Up. No. Come on. Up. Up. He's like, I just want to treat Dad. Ready? Okay. Anyways, I will talk to you guys later. Hope you guys learned something. Again, if you guys have the Anycubic Cobra, it's running Marlin. So if you want to modify your printer, get the source code. See if we can get it to compile. If someone has source code that will compile in VS Code for the Cobra, I would be more than happy to start looking at adding it in. But I am at this point, just because of how much time dealing with all these knockoff processors and these random Chinese processors, how much it's been taken away from my company time, I'm no longer going to be redesigning stuff from scratch. So in order for us to add in a printer that isn't already supported in Marlin in terms of its processor, I'm not doing it unless I have source code. It's as simple as that. So hopefully that'll start pushing people to get source code from the printers so we can actually make better software, because the reality is most of the software I put out is better than every single other manufacturer's source code in terms of firmware for the printer. So yeah, go bug them. You guys are entitled to it. So anyways, I will talk to you guys later. If you want to get notifications when we go live, click the little YouTube notification sign up link in the bottom. We send out emails a half hour before we go live whenever we send out new videos, live streams, etc. So make sure you guys hit that bell, smash that like, and do something. I don't know. I'm not a YouTuber. I just like streaming sometimes. So anyways, I'll talk to you guys later, and always happy printing.